Hi and welcome to this week's Memories Made video. I'm designer Jen Gallacher and today we are going to be using some fun elements like ribbon. And I'm going to start with the Studio Calico pattern paper that I have cut down to 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to go ahead and round the corners, and I'm just going to use a corner rounder punch. And these come in several different curves, so you can determine when you buy your corner punch if you like a really round curve or if you prefer one that's maybe a little less round. There are a lot of elements that I've been noticing lately that include hipster type details, and hipster is kind of a funky, fresh vibe, and one of the collections that I'm really loving right now is the Hello Again collection from Cartabella paper, and it is printed on textured pattern paper, and this is one of the pattern papers from it, and I'm going to use this black side that has a fun text to it. We're going to adhere it here at the bottom, and I'm going to round the corners before I adhere this. Then at the top of this black pattern paper, I am going to place another part of that fun collection, and it is from the pattern paper that has typewriters on it. And when I cut it, I made sure that this particular typewriter was showing, and so we'll add that on top of the black text. And I always try and cut it so that there is a special element showing. Now, from Simple Stories is this fun border strip sticker, and on my blog I will make sure that I link you to all of the products used in this particular layout, so that if you're interested in seeing if you already have it on hand or in purchasing it, you can. And I'm using it because I like the cork. It kind of gives me the same hipster vibe that I wanted for this particular layout. And I'm simply peeling off those circle backing, and then we'll adhere it just below that typewriter border strip that I already cut. And cork is a great element for layouts because it gives it kind of a texture, and when you're using a sticker that looks like cork, then it even takes up less space on your layout, which is always a good thing. So we'll go ahead and trim off the excess sticker from the back. This means that I will get a nice straight line when I trim it. And you can set that aside for use later. So there you can see my border with the strip underneath it. Then this is from a boy collection. This particular pattern paper has stars on the back. It's from My Mind's Eye, but I like the yellow chevron, which matched the yellows that you see here in the typewriters. And then from this fern collection from My Little Yellow Bicycle has stars on one side. I'm using the B side, and I cut the lines so that they would be horizontal. You could also turn them to be vertical. It's up to you. And how I determined what papers I was going to use is I first started with the typewriter pattern paper, which was the most busy pattern paper I was going to use on this layout, and then I matched everything to it. Before I adhere that to my layout, I am going to add the photo. This is a black and white photo of me, and I try to do layouts about myself. It's hard sometimes, and I've discussed that before. Sometimes it's hard to be in front of the camera. It's a little uncomfortable. So before I adhere the yellow, I want to show you how you can incorporate ribbon. Now this is a Maya Road ribbon, and it's a nice broad ribbon, and it has a little bit of a texture to it. And I wanted to bring in some more black elements. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it so that I can adhere it just barely to the top of my layout. And I'm going to use roller dot adhesive to hold it in place. And I'm going to just adhere that over the layout, over the photo. And this doesn't have to be permanent adhesive. This just kind of holds it in place. And then I want to tuck that end behind the pattern paper. And then I want to tuck this one beneath. And then if you find that it's not sticking as well with just regular adhesive, use glue dots to kind of hold it in place. I'm going to go ahead and add glue dots. So there you can see that I've stuck it over the top here, and it is sticking up a little bit here, so I'll add a glue dot to this upper corner. Then I want to add some more ribbon, and there's a couple of different ways that you can add ribbon. Now this is a thinner ribbon. It's almost like a seam binding ribbon. Again, this is from May Arts. And I loved that it was the same coral that you find in the background of this pattern paper and in the background of this pattern paper. But I wanted to pleat it a little bit. And when I'm cutting ribbon, I use dedicated fabric scissors. I don't like using fabric scissors with paper. It will dull your scissor blade. And so we're just going to cut a triangle from the bottom of this to give it a banner edge. So you can see how it's cut a little banner edge. And then I'm going to use a stapler, and I'm going to pleat this ribbon to give it a little bit of texture on my layout. So let's go ahead and get just a standard stapler. You can use a tiny attacher if you have one of those. We're going to staple this to the layout. So I have an element that's large that I know I'm going to place here. I've kind of already pre-planned this layout out, and I want this cute pinked edge to show. So I'm going to start the ribbon higher on the black ribbon. So the coral ribbon will lay higher than the black ribbon. So what we'll do is we're going to use, like I said, just a standard size staple, and we will staple it right onto the layout. So you can see what it looks like there. And then to pleat the ribbon, you just fold it on top a few times, and then you staple it again. You could also use fabric adhesive, you could use glue dots, you can machine stitch, you can do whatever you want to get this to stay. I'm just going to use staples. And I'm not even going to worry that the staple is showing because I like the look of the metal elements. And you can do these pleats as messily or as neatly as you'd like. Remember, just staple as you go. And they do slip out from time to time, so if you have some temporary adhesive to hold them in place, that's a good idea as well. And we're just not worrying about if it's perfect or not. Make sure it goes all the way through. And it takes a bit of practice, and you'll get it wrong sometimes, and that's okay. So there you can see how I've stapled it. It takes a couple of tries. And then again, I'm just going to tuck this behind. And this time I'm going to use a glue dot to hold that ribbon in place. So depending on what I am doing, I like to use a little bit stronger adhesive. So again, you can see just this fun staples. Again, if you don't want the staples to show, you can use an adhesive behind, but I kind of liked the staples on it, so I wanted to leave those on there. All right, so let's go ahead and add some additional elements. One being this yellow pattern paper that I showed you before. And because it is going to go on top of the ribbon, I'm going to go ahead and add both a dot runner adhesive as well as some glue dots to help it stay in place. And we'll just mount that right at the top of the typewriter. Now I'm going to cut a fun new die cut shape that I recently got. It's a Tim Holtz die cut, and it's going to cut this particular shape. And let me show you what it looks like. So it is quite large, and it comes in a thick platform. So if you're using a Cuttlebug or if you're using Sizzix, follow the manufacturer's instructions, and you will run it through your machine, and you'll get a die cut like this. Now these are fun die cuts that you could add photos to the background. You could cut them from metallic papers, glitter paper, whatever you like. I just cut mine from white cardstock. and I'm going to cut it down a little bit so that I can place it on my layout. And I just used a pair of scissors. It adds a fun circular element to your layouts. So you can see how this looks on the layout. Now, I loved this cute little typewriter, but I wanted something that stuck out a little bit more. And so from the Hello Again collection from Cartabella, this cute little typewriter element sticker is the same typewriter that you show here, but we're going to add pop dots to the bottom of it to have it stand up a little bit from the layout. So to make it stick up, you just add a pop dot or two behind it, and then just place it on your layout as is. Now I want to add some fun decorative elements around the page. I'm going to use a card from Ormolu, and I don't know if you know this, but the Hello Again collection was designed by the same designer that creates the Ormolu brand, and so they match perfectly. So this is just a journaling card, and I just cut it down because I liked that particular journaling card. Then I loved this little punch. This is a Martha Stewart punch, and it is got 3 little flowers, and I'm going to punch it out of some mustard cardstock. And they're very, very tiny. There's 2 small and a slightly larger one, and we will place these on the layout. And I like to use little glue dots to adhere small pieces like this down on the page, and I'll just add 1 little glue dot to the back of each piece. You could also use a wet adhesive because you can determine where things go. And then for the center of the larger flower, I'm going to use a gold sequin. And sequins have made a big comeback. They were originally coming out several years ago, but they have made a fun comeback. So to the large flower, I just added a little bit more bling. Then to the upper corner, I wanted to add some of this clear acetate border strip from Heidi Swapp. And I don't need the whole strip, so I'm going to determine how much I need and then cut off the extra. And I've used these before, and again, when you're placing an element like this on your layout, you need to make sure that the adhesive will not show through. So you kind of have to determine beforehand where the element is going to go. So then I'll add just a little bit of adhesive behind. The pink polka dots do help hide these glue dots a little bit, which is nice. You can even slightly curve these acetate pieces. Then I'm going to add a few more of those yellow flowers that I've punched. And again, we'll add a sequin to the center of the large flower. Then let's go ahead and add our journaling to the layout. So I want to add some pattern paper to the fun frame here. So I took some more of the Hello Again pattern paper, and I'm going to punch a really large circle. This is a Fiskars, I believe it's 3 inches. And I'm just going to punch a hole out of it. And then we can mount that right onto that fun frame. And it's nice when you have a collection kit from a company because then you can already have matching pieces. And then my journaling is just printed on some brown craft cardstock, and it talks about how hard I've worked this year to get healthy and that I'm proud of myself for doing that. It's good to include how you feel about yourself in your scrapbooks. Then chalkboards are really hot right now, and you can see all the black elements that I've used, and I thought it would be appropriate to add some chalkboard elements. These are from the American Crafts collection. There are a lot of different companies though that make chalkboard elements, so just go ahead and use what you have on hand, or you can even fudge and use some black cardstock. This is from a Dear Lizzie collection, and this particular clothespin says awesome. And I'm going to use that to help mount that chalkboard there. And then I have some smaller clothespins in natural. These are from Maya Road. Just bringing in some fun wood elements. And I'm going to go ahead and add some glue dots to the bottom of these. Even though they are stickers, they are not sticking as well as I'd like. So sometimes I'll add additional adhesive to make them stick. And I want just a little bit of that pink pattern paper to show through. Now I felt like it was a little empty here, so I used a Sizzix die cut, this leaf die cut, and from the same mustard pattern paper, I cut this leaf die cut, and I'm going to add adhesive to the back of it. And you could also use a Zig Glue pen for this. And we'll just stick that right behind the typewriter, but make sure you don't put it over where your journaling appears. So there you have a layout that shows how you can incorporate fun elements like chalkboard, wooden elements, and ribbon, and a fun way that you can pleat. Thank you for joining me for today's Memories Made video. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of these videos.